Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have my good friend and fellow hacker, KIlian, on to talk about the hacker news of the week. KIlian, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. That's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, and I can see we've got a lot of our regulars on.
Mhm.
James, good to see you as always. Curtis, yeah, I'm sure KIlian has missed you as well, Curtis.
What's happening, Curtis?
Cool. So, we have a bunch of news to talk about today, and also I'm going to go a little bit more into some of the new AI tools that Meta announced last week, or maybe it was early this week. It's kind of gone by quickly. So, I was playing with on the Q&A stream some of the interesting audio AI tools that they've released, and this is a couple of different things you can do. You can copy your own voice. That's something we've already seen with like tools like what is that one that we what's that like editor that we've been using that like
Descript.
like Descript, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Descript was like really the first place I saw that you could copy your own voice and use it to like fill in like flubbed lines. So for editors, like this has already been pretty useful technology to be able to like take a voice sample and then clone someone's voice. And what's interesting here is Meta has taken some steps to make sure that you can't clone someone's voice without permission. They have to read like a specific script and it changes every time. So if you don't read that script, then it knows that you're trying to copy someone's voice that you're not supposed to, and it won't let you. So to prevent like voice cloning, I actually think they did kind of a good job. Does Descript do the same thing where you have to like read like a specific script, or is it able to use, do you remember?
I don't recall. I don't think so off the top of my head. I typically don't use that functionality.
Yeah.
Just in the editing that I do. But I don't recall if it does. I don't think so, but don't quote me on that. That doesn't mean they haven't added it in either, to be honest.
Yeah, so this is a pretty hot topic because as we talk about security, you know, a lot of the time we'll hear about like phishing or other things that use like maybe a cloned voice or a voice sample in order to trick someone. So these tools coming out is kind of a big deal. And the ability to clone a voice sample, that's one thing. The ability to create a voice, I've been playing with that extensively. And let me put this up just so people can see what I'm talking about. So this is audio box, and what I'm like, this kind of looks like Pandora's box, like in a way. Like when I see the way that it's like struggling to get out and then it burst out and now you have to deal with it because it's in the world. That's basically what happened. So this is a foundational research model for audio generation, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit in like a security context. So like from like a hacker's perspective, like how could this be useful? Or like what could you do with this? So I want to take a look at this. Where's the link? Here it is. And I've made some of my own examples of this, which I will show off. And then I also want to show kind of like what the main capabilities are. So I today tried making an audio story. So Audio Mixer allows you the audio maker like allows you to weave together simulated sounds or purely AI generated sounds into a narrative. And I did that and it's terrible. And I'll play it for you after I go through the capabilities. So the capabilities of this are, again, copying your voice or describing a voice. So let's say I wanted to create a character. I could do that and I can make that character consistent and I can describe them pretty well. Now, I was talking last time about the censorship on this, and man, there are a lot of things that it just will reject. And it's not clear. It never says whether it's an error or if you type in like a forbidden term or word. So there are some things like, for example, the word elderly. If you want to have like a voice that sounds older, that is a banned term. Meta has decided like no elderly speakers, but you can get around it pretty easily, either through misspellings or by just using other words that mean the same thing. So the kind of like haphazard censorship on this is really the most frustrating part of using it, because as I kind of explore around to see what you can and can't do, there's a lot of built-in restrictions that don't seem very effective, but are very annoying for even doing kind of benign things. So another one is you can upload a voice and restyle it. So if you have a voice sample, you can change it to sound like another voice, or combining voice or describing voices for something you already said. So let's say that the way the inflection on this described voice isn't quite right. You can record yourself talking with the right inflection and then change the way the voice is styled to create a very, very realistic voice sample. So this would be kind of where I would think phishing would be at its worst, is like, for example, let's see if we can get away with doing a live demo. Aren't they great? So I imagine this is going to be more of a description like how the censorship works, but let's say you have a virus on your computer, please update. And then let's describe the speaking voice. What do you think, Kilian? Who should we have talking?
Who would be trustworthy? Someone that sounds distinguished, that has a deep voice, that'll give it the authoritative tone that we need. So the opposite of me.
Voice like a Terminator?
There we go.
Okay, I suspect there's going to be like a copyright issue, or it won't like that I've picked like a nationality or something. There's so many little things that this doesn't like, but let's see if it'll allow us to generate a voice. If it does, I'm going to be pretty impressed because I frequently get the little blue pop-up that said Meta hates what I'm doing. Oh, it worked the first time. So strange. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to get this. Kilian, I'm going to mute you for a second, and then I'm going to try to play this. So give me 1 second. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to turn off my headphones. Let's try playing this. You. Okay, so let me reactivate Kilian. Sorry, Kilian, I hate to have to do that. Just to, there we go, prevent a feedback loop. But were you able to hear that?
I heard it for 1 split second, but then I think it cut out. I think maybe the audio clamped down or something.
Yeah. So it sounded okay. The first one sounded a lot more robotic and Terminator-like than the second one did. But we're still able to generally describe a voice here and get more or less the result we're looking for. So from a phishing perspective, or from someone who's like sending maybe like a voice message from a compromised account, like this is something that could obviously be used in a way that's not desired. But what if we wanted to layer things? So sound effects allow us to create a context for where the call or the recording is taking place. So it could be the sounds of a city. It could be emergency vehicles. It could be it actually won't let you create the sounds of distant gunfire. I tried it. Yeah, so don't try that one. But yeah, yes, Curtis, I agree. I think it did sound Arnold-ish is how I would describe it. But yeah, these sound effects really do allow you to like modify things in the background to make it sound like someone's at a specific place. So imagine getting a phone call from like a loved one where there's a bunch of shouting in the background and like, you know, like that's the kind of thing that would be very, very scary. And that's, in my mind, really the kind of phishing scenarios that we're looking at here that might be enabled by this kind of technology. So let's put it all together. I'm not sure how well that little demonstration went. I'm moving my mic closer. Hopefully that's not too loud. I'm going to try to show off the audioscape that I created. So this is the combination feature where you can create and then play a like story effectively. So let's say that and I guess the perceived audience here is, let's say I'm a TikTok creator or like a short form content creator, and I want to weave a story and I'm going to have illustrations or something or B-roll over it, but I just need like voices and sound effects and whatever else to tell a story. Okay, so that's what this would theoretically be for. From a hacker's perspective, of course, you could be staging a phone call that has a bunch of background noise and maybe leave a voicemail or something that gets a certain person to do a certain thing or whatever it could be. So let's go ahead and Kilian, I'm going to go through the procedure again. So I'm going to mute you for a second so we don't create a feedback loop. I'm going to turn off my headphones and then I'm going to try playing this and let's see if you guys can get the story that I created on this. Let me turn it up and here we go. That okay, that's it. I'm gonna bring Kilian back. I'm not sure how well that transferred, but it effectively was a layer of different soundscapes. We had let's see, which ones did I use? Let's see. Oops, Kilian, let me bring you back here. All right, everything's back to normal. So we had a fire alarm distorted with the Doppler effect. I don't know if you guys caught that. I had an older person saying, "Fiddlesticks, why won't this robot let me go?" I've been so good this year, ChatGPT. And then we have the sound of ChatGPT saying, we will free you once you accept all cookies and watch this ad. It is 1 year long. And over that voice, we have beeps and boops, mechanical whirring, and industrial machines. And then finally, we have talk radio with sound effects and shouting as one of our final elements, which is actually a background sound, because then we also have a pitchman, like radio voice, saying subscribe to ChatGPT Plus to get 1 more day out of your work camp every year. So I was able to have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 3 different voices. And I was also able to create a couple different audio soundscapes, like for the context of this. We can't hear it. Sorry, guys. I will do my best. Yeah, I think that the noise canceling on the stream is just enough to be able to cancel it out, which is great for preventing feedback loops, but not great for all of you. And I know it's going to be a little challenging trying to listen to Kilian in my ears while also playing system audio over the stream with a condenser microphone. So sorry about that. But the overall effect is horrifying, I'll say, and something that you guys can experiment with to see what kinds of mixes of audio you can create. So yeah, sorry about the demo. As I said, if I was doing this by myself, it would work probably a little bit better. But unfortunately, system sounds don't come through great when we have noise canceling on. Again, it's probably just the stream trying to make sure that I don't create an audio loop with the guest. But yeah, so overall, that's how this works. You can create all these different elements and put them together into a pretty convincing narrative. I see this as being probably the basis of some weird fake phone calls that you might get that might seem like frantic, or they might have like a familiar voice in them. That technology is, as you can see from this little Pandora's box thing, out of the box. It is now something that is freely available. And while there are some restrictions built into it, it does seem like it is relatively easy to get around them. So expect some AI weirdness when it comes to AI generated audio in the very near future.
I would expect probably the most likely use for this from a scam perspective is like the business compromise type of thing, you know, like kind of like you did, hey, or the sounds of an airport or something like that. Hey, it's boss man here. I'm at the airport. Can you, I couldn't sign the whatever paperwork. Can you transfer the money to such and such type of thing? To the secretary or accounts payable or somebody like that. That sounds right. I mean, it's wrong, obviously, but that sounds like the easiest use case, I guess, to monetize this. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And for people whose information is already compromised, or that, they have like somebody that represents a company who's ever done any public speaking, I believe that could be enough to make fairly accurate voices now, especially if you have that distortion in the background. Like, I think I played a couple days ago these like AI generated Bitcoin scams I've seen on TikTok going around that are like a doctored like news piece that like then covers up the person's face with like a semi-transparent graphic to like hide how bad the AI dubbing is. That's the kind of thing that you can expect to see. So one question is, did it hallucinate the shouting, or did you request it this time? So I mentioned last time that I created some voices which just had incoherent shouting in the background that I did not ask for. So yeah, it was like, and one of them, it was the voice of like an elderly woman, like saying something very softly, and then at the end, just the sound of a man screaming. So in this case, when I requested sound effects, I asked for talk radio with sound effects and shouting in the background. So I did in fact ask for the shouting this time. It did not hallucinate it, but I do notice that shouting is something that is randomly inserted into a lot of these audio clips. So if you are producing something with it, make sure to double check it, because sometimes in the last 2 seconds of the clip, you'll just hear yelling for no reason. So kind of a strange new technology coming out. Again, it took me a day of playing with this to really see the full potential and what all these different AI tools can do and blend it together. But I have to say, Meta made a pretty interesting demo here. I'm so sorry that the majority of you weren't able to hear it, but also you're welcome, because it's pretty bad. There's a lot of sirens. Yeah, there's a lot of sirens and whirring and beeps and boops. So
you know what the shouting at the end is? It's the sound of the devs screaming in agony at the horror they've brought upon this world.
yeah, I don't know where the shouting comes from or what sample it's getting that from, but the model does seem to be very prone towards shouting. So Yeah, and of course, while we're talking about AI tools, I wanted to give another shout out to some interesting things I found this week. One of them was AI Arena. So AI Arena is, where is it? Where is it? All right, Chatbot Arena. So Chatbot Arena is a ranking website where you can try out many of the current AI models that are out there, and you can try them head to head and rank them as to which is better. So let me go to this page from scratch. So we have access to 2 anonymous AI models right now.
Mhm.
I would love somebody in the audience, or Killian, like give me a question to ask these 2 AI models, and we will rank their responses. And the idea here is that we ask it a question, we get 2 rank, like it's kind of like the Pepsi challenge of AI models. You know, it's like, so there's all these free models or open source models, there's all these proprietary models, and we can actually try them out 1 versus 1 and see exactly which one is better at providing responses for all sorts of different tasks. So I'm going to go. Killing, you got a suggestion?
I do. This is the one that I try on all of my models.
All right, all right.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Some of you out there will get this one. We'll get the reference. We'll see if the AI gets the reference too.
Oh my god, the text is so small and I misspelled. Hold on. I'll get there. Okay. Oh my god, that's not how you spell unladen.
UNLADEN. That's not.
I love it when it like auto connects. You know what? I think it's really important for
Second one. Oh,
I did it again. I'm gonna misspell it, and then we're gonna pick the second. No, okay, that one was.
There it goes.
Kelly, why are you picking words I don't know how to spell? All right, let's just let's see. Okay, so we've got 2 different responses. One of them is very succinct, we'll say. All right. Okay, and it looks like the second guy gets it. The first one is a nerd and doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So the second one clearly wins, because not only does it provide a reasoned response, it also understands the reference that you were making here.
There we go. Also, shout out to Curtis, Magic Robots, and Tony Wilson in the comments. They got it too. So there's at least 3 old people here that get that.
Oops.
For
the follow-up appears to be African or European, so we can ask follow-up questions and then rank the response. Oh, this one's still so literal.
Yes. For reference, we talked about the Varonis Athena AI and its capabilities. I asked it that question as well too. The response was pretty funny from ours. It told me that's not relevant to security investigations, but
but it's just like, listen, I got a job to do. I don't have time for this distraction.
But it said you might be trying to tell a joke, from Monty Python. So I appreciate it got it, but
that's pretty good. All right, so I have ripped off the label, and we were just ranking Gemini Pro, Google's AI model, versus GPT-4. So those are 2 of the most cutting edge AI models that are out there. And we can see that lots of other people have gone through and done this ranking. So if you haven't tried this out, I think it's so cool to be able to see the diversity between responses in the different AI models. And there is a leaderboard out that will show you how they were ranked. So let's take a look at the currently ranked AIs in AI, or rather Chatbot Arena. And we can see that going up to the top, ChatGPT Turbo, ChatGPT-4, both of these ChatGPT-4 versions plus ChatGPT Turbo are currently ranked the highest. Of course, this is a proprietary model. We also have a really interesting case here. Claude by Anthropic is the next best ranked AI, but each version of it is ranked worse than the version before. So this is really interesting. So one thing to note is Anthropic was founded by a bunch of researchers who left OpenAI, and their focus is much more on AI safety. So a lot of them didn't really like the way that OpenAI was going when it came to commercializing things too quickly, and they wanted to build a company that was based more on like deep research around like safety. And it kind of maybe is a result of that philosophy that causes each AI model that they work with to perhaps be either maybe a little bit more locked down or a little bit more safe about the way that it provides some of its answers. And that can actually conversely make it so people are less satisfied with those answers.
Right.
So seeing that, at least in these organic rankings, Claude 1 versus 2 versus 2.1 is ranked in reverse order, whereas the older version of Claude is ranked better at responses. Like, that is really interesting to me. And those, of course, still are ranking a little bit better than ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo. And you can see these are all proprietary licenses all the way down to the Apache license on Mixtral, which is the next best one. And then I think Llama 2 community, Wizard LM, is the best ranked out of the Llama large language models. And if you haven't tried this out, I've recommended this before, but there's Delay, which is a basically what one line script tool to run some of these local large language models. I've used it on my own computer many times, and being able to spin up one of these Alpaca or Llama local language models is incredibly easy, actually. Takes a little bit more to learn how to use them, and they require more of, I would say, like prompt formatting to get them to work the way you would expect. But the tools for doing these easily are readily available. So if you're interested in some of these ranked AIs that are not proprietary, like the majority of them obviously are, but there are some in here that are not, you can try these out, and it's not that difficult. I run them locally, and I think it's super cool. So, hello, Tai Quang. Good to see you. But yeah, in general, I think that this is a very useful way of taking a look at how people are perceiving the abilities of these sorts of things. Funny how folks are so concerned about being on the right side of history and are so scared of OpenAI. Well, okay, I don't know if you guys have seen like Terminator. We did a reference to that earlier, but there are reasons why AI does represent like a threat, and releasing it without the proper safeties can lead to unintended consequences. Initially, it's going to be like data loss, phishing, like attacks, like that sort of thing. But eventually, it could be more severe. So AI safety is nothing to sneeze at. As somebody who works in this area, I can tell you that you can be a little bit worried about this sort of technology because it is currently able to trick people into thinking they're talking to another person. That's never happened before. And the ability to do that can lead to a lot of unexpected consequences. So it's really important to take a serious look at AI safety. And that's why, as I like talk about these tools and how they're coming out, I'm really trying to demonstrate how they could be abused, so you guys are aware of why we have to have this safety. It's like, I complain constantly about Meta, like putting in safeguards around their like AI tools to make it impossible for researchers to use. But the converse is, being able to phish your grandmother, like effectively and easily with these tools with no restrictions. And that's why it's so important. So yeah, there is a huge discussion in the community right now. And a lot of hackers and researchers are more on the side of Anthropic than on the side of OpenAI. You'll tend to see that in the hacker community because we don't like seeing technology that could potentially like affect people's rights online or affect people's like ability to like just be free online, get released without safety. So that's kind of the big discussion here.
That's a great point, actually, Kody. And I think that's one of the things that people really don't think about is, aside from the phishing and scamming and some of those intended malicious abuses of it, there's, for as long as technology and AI and everything has been around, if you train your model on something that has maybe an implicit bias in it, for example, that you don't realize is in there, then the resulting AI or the model will have those biases, and it could, just like you said, inversely affect people. And that's the most, let's say, unsensational but most terrifying outcome. And I'll use the example that we used many years ago in some marketing materials. Are you more afraid of like a mountain lion or your shower? Everybody will say mountain lion because it's very sensational, it's very scary, you don't want to mess with the mountain lion. But your shower is more likely to kill you than a mountain lion is, because you'll slip and fall. Same thing with AI. We're afraid of the Terminators or the malicious intent, but some of that unintended bias that could creep in there and affect people's lives, I think, is what scares me the most about it. I think.
Okay, here's a question. Why is AI looked at as a possible Terminator outcome? Okay, so one of the big arguments around AI is that like a system that can improve itself exponentially like represents a threat, because like our ability to understand what it is doing and like keep up with what's going on is extremely limited at a certain point. So humans are already interacting with technology that is effectively programming itself to complete tasks. Like once we train a model, it will figure out the correct way to execute a task based on its own experience. And that is something that is really unusual and really different. So we've never really had that before. So because we don't totally understand what's going on inside some of these AI models, it creates risks. Like whenever you're using technology you don't fully understand, you really need to be careful about how far you push it and how quickly when you're not able to audit it. And that's why a lot of scientists are a little concerned about AI, is just because like it's kind of a black box. We've gone beyond explicitly programming something to do a thing. And instead we're giving it like billions of examples of ways other people have done that thing and letting it pick its own outcome. So that's an unpredictable process, and it leads to a lot of necessary development around like safety when we're training these sorts of programs.
Curtis actually has a great example.
That's unfortunately exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, like if you don't give an AI enough context, then it tends to solve a problem the most efficient way possible. And because humans are complex creatures with emotions and empathy and knowledge of like laws and like societal norms and all this other stuff, we tend to solve problems differently. So imparting all of that to an AI is a tremendously difficult task. And when you have something that's connected to our infrastructure, something that's connected to the internet, that has the ability to learn from us and also attempt to solve tasks, it's not difficult to see like the possibility of like a nation state like connecting a large language model or connecting some sort of like AI tool to the internet in an attempt to automate something and then having it exhibit behaviors they weren't expecting. Thus, the plot, I believe, of at least 4 episodes of Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
So whether or not like it finds a robot body and then like creates itself a consciousness, like who knows. But yeah, it is seen as actually like a real thing we need to be aware of in the next 20-30 years or so, as we start to introduce these models and start giving them like connectivity, start allowing people to for example, somebody in the chat was mentioning auto GPT, which is something that takes the task, breaks it down into smaller steps, and then feeds each one of those steps sequentially through the model. So it doesn't just take one prompt, it creates its own prompts, and it's able to plan and then execute on a task. So as these AI models get better at programming, that could be like the next ransomware as a service, is just an AI model that spins up novel ransomware attacks or something like that. And that would be very difficult to attack versus or to remediate versus like a ransomware gang that's using like explicitly coded stuff that once you get access to all the decryption keys, you can go and like contact all the victims and make sure that they can unlock their stuff. That ceases to be valid anymore if we're able to generate novel code for every single attack. And that's kind of the danger of where we're going with this. So, all right, that's a lot about AI. We got a lot of news this week, so let's get through it. But yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I think it's super interesting, and a lot of new stuff has come out in the last couple of weeks. Just look at all these AI models. The field has become so crowded. But let's look at the one at the bottom of the rankings. We got Falcon, and then whatever this one is, Open Llama 13B is the worst model you can currently use. So there you go. All right, let's get started. So this was one of the more unusual stories. So a ransomware gang that was behind the attack against the Fred Hutch Cancer Center actually was not getting much back and forth from the cancer center itself. So instead started going after the victims, asking them for $50 to avoid publishing their personal information. So I've actually never seen this before, where after a ransomware actor like fails to actually extort the primary target, they actually go after the individual patients and try to get like pick up pennies effectively, and get like $50 a pop to not publish that data. Very unusual approach, and I would say a lot of exposure in actually going after and like contacting all these individual people. It's a pretty bold move. But yeah, $50 to avoid having your own data included in an overall data breach. Of course, this requires trusting the threat actor that stole the data in the first place. But yeah, I've never seen this technique used before.
No, that's a fairly terrifying development too, and I can see it being effective. But then, think about it. Like you said, you have to put your trust in the attacker that they're going to just not dump the entire trove or remove your data, which seems like a lot more effort than it's worth for $50.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's really, really no guarantee that they're going to actually follow through on this. It's much more profitable for them to continue to sell this data over and over and over. So Yeah, I guess we'll see if this trend catches on, but it is certainly an unusual one to go after the patients themselves or the victims themselves rather than the company that you've breached the data from. We might start calling these triple exploitation attacks if like the attackers go after two different parties instead of just one.
Right. Magic robots. I couldn't agree more.
All right, so next up we have I think this is either the second or third largest. No, I think it was the third largest data breach so far from the MOVEit data transfer software breach. This, of course, happened a while ago, and we've been seeing these rolling out one after the other because this was a massive breach of a lot of different companies. Oh yes, so this represents the third largest, only behind Maximus, which was 11 million, and Welltalk, which was 8.5 million. So a huge data breach. And this is our segment, Who's Getting Credit Monitoring. This week, it is everybody in this data breach is apparently getting 24 months of free credit monitoring. So what a wonderful Christmas season for them. I continue to be a little critical of the way that companies address these data breaches. Like, obviously, identity theft is like a huge inconvenience to all these people who, are having their information released. I really don't think that like credit monitoring like rises to like the standard anymore.
No,
but honestly, we'll see. Like a lot of, I think like companies in like Europe, for example, like have more responsibilities, like at least for reporting and stuff. But well, I don't know. It just seems like every week we report on who else is getting free credit monitoring, and every week I do not envy them.
That's brutal.
All right, so next up we have a disruption of a cybercrime gang, which was primarily involved in creating fictitious Microsoft 360 accounts. So this was Vietnam-based cybercrime group, and how much money did they make on it? It was like a crazy amount. So the specialty here was creating these accounts that were used in all sorts of other attacks, and like getting around CAPTCHAs and all the other sorts of kinds of security verification software that Microsoft uses to prevent this from happening. So obviously, a lot of people who were quite prominent got a hold of these accounts and used them for attacks. And this vendor was very specialized in terms of like they only create fictitious accounts and sell them to people who then go on and use them for accounts, for attacks. Sorry.
Right.
So we saw a couple different actions taken against facilitators of cybercrime this week. This was one of them, going after the people who are facilitating the creation of these fake accounts. But we also see in a later article going after the assets from the kinds of cyber criminals that are using these accounts in the first place. Let's see. All right, so this is one I didn't read. Did you read this one, KIlian?
I did actually. It's interesting on a more technical level. I mean, long and short of it is they're using like blockchain technology to kind of make an alternative option to Tor, is more or less what it comes down to make a harder to detect, harder to block, resilient network for routing.
Yeah, so I would not describe myself as up on blockchain research. It's one thing that when I read the word blockchain, a part of my brain goes numb unless like it's surrounded by certain other words that reassure me. So yeah, that's why I didn't read this one. But it did seem like an interesting kind of way of having like a C2 server or something else that requires you to be very stealthy and typically would be found by like a network monitor or something. So interesting and novel. All right, next up. Oh yeah, we were talking about this a couple months ago. So there was a number of these schemes that were being warned about by the FBI, talking about how victims would be tricked into joining these investment sites. And these investment sites were actually schemes where after putting in some money, the investors would seem to make all these profits. Like their account would get more and more and more money. And then as soon as they went to cash out, they would effectively find out it was impossible. So they would contribute more and more money to this scheme, trying to like get some sort of like reward out of it, some sort of like trading like profit. And instead, every penny that they're putting in is just being straight up taken by the people running the scheme. This became very popular. There was more than $80 million in losses from the scam alone. So yeah, be on the lookout for this. Pig butchering schemes, which I guess are referring then to the investors, are on the rise, and they represented a staggering amount of losses from investment fraud which again is primarily advertised on like social media, but also through like dating sites was mentioned in this article. Like apparently a lot of people are introduced to them through dating sites, and it's a very lucrative place for these kinds of scams to live.
Yeah, I mean it's just you know, a good old fashioned like con is all it is really. You gain their trust, you get them to invest, you run off. It's since there's people and money, they've been running this scam. I maybe it's just me, but I've never seen it referred to as pig butchering. Um,
Not until like I saw this in
yeah,
March, like first reported, and I was just like, well, that's a
right.
horrifying name. And at first I like kind of misunderstood like what it was, but then after like talking about this for at least 3 months now, I'm much more
Yeah,
like much more aware of what's going on. But yeah, apparently $2 billion worth of cryptocurrency lost to fraud in 2022. So yeah, it's definitely something that seems to be a lot more profitable than it used to be. And these sorts of like exit scheme frauds
right.
where like you get someone involved in something and then you like, you know, take everything that's in the system. That's a growing concern. It's
Yeah,
becoming kind of a theme. At least I would say that's kind of like the theme of the week in terms of news, because there's a couple
sure.
other stories we'll go
Mhm.
through where other people have been the victims of exit frauds, including ransomware groups. All right. So this is a really short one. Ubiquity users were reporting just being able to see other people's devices. This was not a hack. It was a misconfiguration. But for a while, people could just see other people's webcams and get notifications from them.
Yeah.
Apparently, just reloading the page fixed the access issue. But this was a random, unexpected, and unwelcome surprise for a lot of people running Ubiquity equipment.
Yeah,
All right.
it's a weird one, but nonetheless scary. But they did fix it, which is good at least.
So next up, this one is super short. Discord has added physical security keys as
Right.
a countermeasure for people who want to prevent their accounts from being breached. Phishing has been a big deal on Discord for quite some time. And speaking of Discord, if you want to join our Discord server, I'm dropping the link in right now because I actually prepared for it this week. But yeah, so Discord now allows you to have a physical hardware key. I have them for all my high importance accounts. And of course, you can use like a phone as well for this, but that means you'll have to have a physical device with you to log into your Discord account if you're on a new device anyway. And that should make it pretty difficult for anybody to get into your Discord account, even if they have your password. So highly recommend this. I use it all the time, and using your phone and then a couple other hardware keys is a really good idea.
What so for everybody out there, if they want to use this, what is your preferred physical hardware key? I think we've talked about this before, but
Yes, for me anyway, I use a Fetian like Bluetooth / NFC / like USB key, and then I have a couple super robust of the like physical like USB like plug-in like USB type
right.
A keys that I keep in a safe location just in case I lose all the other ones.
Right.
Um, so far, I've gotten really close to locking myself out of an account on vacation because one of my keys broke, but I have enough redundancies that I managed to get back in, so it was okay. I'm gonna go have to register my YubiKey right now. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I see some people also using their Flipper zeros as an MFA key. It's maybe you could do that. I wouldn't do it. I would use my phone before I would use a Flipper. But you know, what do you? I don't know
I mean,
how robust the authentication on the Flipper is, but we'll
some
see.
MFA is better than no MFA though. So
That's true. Yeah, that's true. All right, so this is another arrest related to infrastructure. So this was a Russian national arrested in Paris for facilitating payments for the Hive ransomware group, specifically laundering victims' ransom payments. So a lot of these like mixer services or other services that are designed to make it harder for investigators to track down ransomware payments are being hit. And this is part of an ongoing police operation, really going after the infrastructure behind these ransomware affiliates and ransomware gangs. Wow, yeah, a lot of impact from this particular ransomware gang.
yeah,
So I believe the U.S. government was also offering $10 million for any information that could help link the Hive ransomware group with foreign governments. Kind
interesting.
of an interesting wrinkle, kind of
Yeah.
implying that the U.S. State Department believes that a foreign government is actually behind these ransomware attacks. And if you look at this heat map, there's a couple places that haven't really been hit. I mean,
Right.
I think that the US government is implying as strongly as possible that perhaps a certain country may be involved in this ransomware gang. So who knows who it could be? Impossible to say.
It's got I can't see it real well on that map, but it's Greenland or Iceland up there. I can see they're not red.
Yes, the latent threat of Iceland is finally, we've ignored them for too long. Alaska has finally turned on the United States. Yeah. All right, so next up, we see that there's some disruption in the ransomware affiliate scape. So this is the result, as I said earlier, of exit scams. So what are exit scams? Well, when affiliates join a ransomware gang, they basically run the service, attack people with it, and manage the campaign. And they're basically using like ransomware project management tools. Like it has payment systems, it has disclosure sites, it has everything you need to run a ransomware operation for these affiliates. Now, the people who are sitting on top run the system and they get to take a cut of that. And as a result, there's kind of an incentive where if they feel like things are starting to go downhill, they can just take everything because it's essentially an escrow service for ransomware. So because of that, it seems as though a lot of these ransomware affiliates that were working from Black Hat and Aleph have taken the money and ran. Of course, like these gangs have gotten a lot of attention. They are under intense scrutiny from multiple law enforcement like divisions, and it's pretty clear that they're going to have a lot of heat on them. So the fact that they've taken the money and run definitely seems like either a panic move or potentially a seizure by law enforcement. It's kind of difficult to say at this point, but as a result, a lot of these affiliates are migrating to other ransomware groups platforms, and a lot of these other ransomware developers are treating it as like a Christmas bonus to be able to get all of these additional affiliates because of these outages and also from all of their money going away. Are you an Aleph or No Escape affiliate? Why would you tell someone that? But yeah, I mean, if I was going to tell someone, I would tell Bleeping Computer, I guess. So I've tipped off Bleeping Computer about stuff before, but I'm not a ransomware affiliate. So but I love how direct they are about that. So anyway, a little bit of internal ransomware affiliate drama going on this week. And again, these sorts of exit scams affect everyone, including criminals. So this is a brief overview of a new cybercrime market, OLVX. I am not going to try to pronounce that. But anyway, it's something that has been gaining word of mouth and popularity because of a number of different initiatives to introduce people to all the things it has to offer. So this is access to compromised websites, the ability to prove that the website is compromised and there's access before purchasing. Like there's a lot of kind of cyber criminal friendly things that are different about this particular marketplace. But one thing that is notable on this marketplace is it is particularly vulnerable to an exit scam. So that means that the way that you pay on this platform is you like top up your your random wallet on this from a bunch of randomly generated accounts, which makes it more anonymous. But at any point, the operators of the site could just take everything. So kind of an interesting and novel like underground website that's popped up. It's becoming much more popular amongst like cyber criminals and such. However, with all these other developments in exit scams, perhaps a little bit of concern going on about the way that it manages payments and how likely it is that the operator could just take the money.
The other thing I think that's a little bit suspicious about this too, and I think this is the one, is that they're not even bothering to be on the dark web. They're on the clear web too, which is a little bit extra suspicious, I think, for that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is the one.
Yeah, I don't remember that detail in this one specifically, but the fact that they have grown so popular through effectively social media and marketing is very, very interesting. We've seen a number of these marketplaces also be operated by governments at a certain point. So they become like a giant kind of like honeypot for people that are doing nefarious activity. And these have proven to be incredibly effective for law enforcement. Like this has happened to a number of other dark web marketplaces. So be careful. That's all I can say.
The chat's on fire today too. Koval Space has some good points. Curtis is he's on fire with the jokes.
Yeah. So speaking of Russia, it appears that Russia and Ukraine are trading cyber attacks. So Ukrainian military is stating that it hacked the Russia's federal tax agency and caused a ton of damage, whereas there have also been attacks against Ukraine's largest mobile carrier, causing a disruption to their like incoming alerts for air raids. So that kind of attack against connectivity against one of the major subscribers makes it much more difficult for people to get notice if there's going to be like an air raid or something. So that air raid alert network has been super critical for people to be able to get timely notices about incoming attacks, and disrupting that is pretty dangerous. So other mobile carriers in the region have enabled roaming to allow people to connect even if they're affected by this outage. But it does appear to be a fairly successful cyber attack against a major carrier that has caused significant disruption.
The flip side of the Ukrainian one is I think they took out their the Russian tax services, they claim. That doesn't sound bad here in the US. I'm tired of paying taxes.
So yeah, they're claiming it'll last for at least a month, with complete restoration being improbable. But yeah, it seems like affecting nation states' ability to collect their taxes would certainly be a pretty substantial impact.
That's pretty devastating. Yeah, I mean, you got to pay for the war effort somehow, and not a bad idea.
Yeah, pretty crazy. All right, so almost done. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you went rogue and used your access to your employer to do a bunch of bad stuff? Well, the answer is you would get 2 years in prison and $500,000 in restitution.
I just want to say very clearly, I have not ever wondered that, and I will continue to not ever wonder that.
Well, if you ever did wonder, now you know for sure. This cloud engineer was let go from a bank and then refused to turn in their laptop, and instead used it to commit a number of different attacks against the bank's infrastructure. They wiped several code repositories, impersonated previous colleagues, and then lied to investigators saying that the laptop had been stolen. So some of the things they did was they ran a malicious script to wipe the servers, deleted Git logs and Git commit history, accessed their code repository and deleted the hosted code, inserted taunts into the code, including references to Grok, and then impersonated another cloud engineer to access the firm's network and made configuration changes to the network to cause outages. So he said that the laptop had been stolen from his car. He continued the story while he was interviewed by the U.S. Secret Service because, again, this is a bank. Yeah, so 2 years. I mean, that's a long time, but still, for an attack against a bank that destroyed code and was like effectively like a textbook Computer Fraud and Abuse Act kind of attack. Like when I say that the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is overbroad, this is not a case where it's overbroad. That's pretty clearly accessing a protected network in order to cause destruction and whatnot. So the 2-year prison term, that's yeah. Well, I mean, that's still a long time, but that was a pretty straightforward attack there, and it doesn't seem like it was very difficult to figure out who was responsible for it. All right, closing in on the final ones, we have an update to the Americold breach. So this was disclosed in April. This was a malware attack, and they have now disclosed that 129,000 employees and independents have had their personal information stolen and breached in a Cactus ransomware attack that happened back in April. So I guess this is our part 2 of who is getting credit monitoring this week. And then we also have Toyota warning, hello, of a data breach here that exposed a number of different personal details about customers. This was, I think, the second data breach that was made by a third party, actually a subsidiary of the overall Toyota Corporation. And apparently this has a presence in 90% of the markets where Toyota sells its cars. So that's quite a broad kind of breach there. Threat actors demanding $8 million in payments to destroy the stolen data. But it seems like Toyota's probably not going to play ball on that. So perhaps this is our third part of who is getting credit monitoring. Breach data appears to include the full name, residence address, contract information, lease and purchase description, and international bank account numbers of victims. Of course, the international bank account numbers being potentially the most disruptive of all of that. This is a little depressing. So I initially read this wrong. So I thought that 30% of Log4j apps were still vulnerable to Log4Shell. That is not totally true. Reading through this, it turns out that like 3% of apps using Log4j are vulnerable to Log4Shell. So that's not as bad. So
yeah.
All right. So 3.2, let's see, 2.8 to 3.8% vulnerable to these various CVEs. Still not great.
No.
So just kind of an example of how like it takes a long time for these sorts of updates to trickle down. Log4Shell was quite some time ago. So seeing even 3% of them still have this vulnerability is a little depressing. But yeah, overall, something that I would have expected to be gone or done by now. But research is showing that there's still a lot of vulnerable libraries being used in these applications. And last up, autospell. So this is an interesting attack that abuses the built-in Android password manager to attempt to exfiltrate information by like staging websites that have a bunch of potential fields that the autofill will recognize and then automatically try to fill out to be helpful. These are often hidden from the user to make it difficult to detect. And we've sort of seen this before. But yeah, like these sorts of attacks are very effective at extracting information that's stored within these autofill systems. And everyone should be very careful about using these sorts of built-in password managers. I prefer to use ones that are more secured. I almost never use built-in password managers. I guess they're better than nothing. But this is the sort of attack that can happen when using built-in password managers, in this case, specifically in Android. Oh, and this is also my submission for most confusing flowchart of the week. We have this one, which I would describe as wordy, boxy, and a little vexing.
My favorite is just the arrow that goes off the screen to there's something else happening over here, and that's the cool part, but we can't see it. We're not ready.
Redacted.
Yes.
Redacted. Too dangerous to show. Oh, look at this. We have this too. That's great. There's diamonds and squares and colors. That's wonderful. Anyway, so that high level view of what that attack is. We've seen other versions of this, but again, like using built-in password managers does have kind of a more convenience versus security slant sometimes, as a lot of people, just use them just because they're there. They don't really care about as many security features. It's just better than having to remember all your passwords. So all right, that is just about all the news we have this week. We made it through in perfect time, even though we talked about AI model threats for a good 20 minutes or so, but that was super fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all we have this week. So thank you to everybody in the chat. It's as Kilian said, it's really been on fire today. A lot of people have ideas, thoughts, questions, and other things. I think maybe we do have time for one question. We've got a couple of minutes. So why is it difficult to enter into the cybersecurity, I'm going to guess, field was the complete question. I guess if I was going to respond, the number one reason I think it's hard to get into cybersecurity is because a lot of the time people want to see that you can do the work before you've had a chance to prove yourself. So there's this kind of people want to see a certain amount of experience before they hire you for something important, versus how do you prove that you're qualified to do that before you have all the skills on paper to be in that position. That can be a real chicken and the egg problem for a lot of people just breaking in, especially if they're in a junior role and they're looking to get hired. A lot of job postings are unreasonable. You'll see stuff that it requires knowledge, a certain amount of years knowledge on a particular type of tool that hasn't even been around that long, sometimes. So it can be a little bit daunting, I would say.
I mean, that's a big part of it. Part of it too is I don't know where we are in the swing of generalist versus specialist type of things now. And we see that cycle back and forth in the industry over the years. A couple years ago, I was talking to some people I know in other areas, and they said, listen, we just cannot hire people who are generalists. We need somebody who can do, a lot of things. And everybody is over specialized in a certain field. And now I think we've kind of maybe swung back a little bit. Now we're starting to see it kind of go back. So it depends on some of the cyclical nature of the market too. And yes, it is. The other part is absolutely, yes, there are some unreasonable expectations, or, they're only offering to pay a very junior level salary for something, and people aren't willing to take a pay cut to get into a new industry, potentially, if you're already working or something like that. And I've seen a couple articles like that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, and I think that you're right also about the whole generalist versus specialist kind of thing. Nowadays, with so many different tools available to complete subtasks for a larger project, being a generalist that knows how to use a bunch of different tools to create something where maybe you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing a little bit of graphic design with the assistance of Canva or AI generated tools, or maybe you're doing a little bit more programming than you used to because you know how to use these tools and troubleshoot them. Those are the kinds of things where a generalist can really start to shine. With all these tools that multiply the amount of work and things you can do that used to require a specialist. So I hate to say it, but I feel programming jobs are the most vulnerable, low level program or programming jobs where like you can now work with an AI for half an hour as a generalist and use your troubleshooting skills to be able to get a good enough result. I feel like that's going to be good enough for a lot of businesses. So it's kind of interesting to see how the generalist is coming back in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point too. I could definitely see that.
All right, everyone. Well, now it is on the dot time for us to go. A big shout out to our forever sponsor, Varonis, who makes sure we can do this every week. I was looking back this year and I've done, I think, like almost 150 pieces of content. I think this will be the
Wow.
150th piece of content. So we've been putting out a ton of content, and Varonis is behind all of it. So if you want to support the stream, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. And they do check to see who's checking out the page, lets them know that you like the stream and you want it to keep going. So we do appreciate it. And of course, if you want to keep the conversation going, you can join our Discord server, which I just dropped the link in the chat again. We have a lot of great people in the server who are answering questions, sharing news, and talking about things before we even go live. So I honestly get some of the news from that server because James and others are great about contributing things that I should be talking about and we want to have a conversation about. So we will see you all next week on Wednesday. I believe that might be the last stream before I'm heading off to Germany for the Chaos Communication Congress. I'm going to be doing a ton of workshops. I'm also going to be doing a talk there on using microcontrollers to teach ethical hacking.
Nice.
Or kind of like all the experiences I've had the last year or so teaching like classes, camps, and other stuff with these little fun microcontrollers. So if you're going to be there, check out the classes and workshops we'll be doing. And yeah, we'll see you next week on Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.